Peering around one of the intricately engraved pillars, Alex watched as a group of gnarled creatures surveyed the area where she had fought for survival. Now that she could take a good look at them, she was certain that these things could be nothing but demons. Giant slug monsters would have been grotesque enough. These creatures took it even further, with 4 sets of claw-clad arms sprouting from their torsos at asymmetrical intervals, a wide snout that came out of their underbelly and constantly snorted at the ground, like that of a hog searching for truffles, a cluster of antennae that probed and twitched in all directions atop their headless, faceless bodies. They stood just shy of shoulder height, walking on 4 stout legs with right-angled toes that dug firmly into the gravel. Their hide, thick and coarse, was a blend of tan and deep blue. Alexandra grimly watched the sway of their tail. Long and flexible, it looked like just the thing to wrap around somebody's neck. She squatted with her back against the column, leaning her head against the cool stone as she listened to the crunch of their steps. There had been worse on the Nature Channel, she told herself. Fleas were terrifying bugs when looked at under the microscope. Most insects were nightmarish beasts up close. Countless creatures under the ocean could pass for horrendous aliens far scarier than these. You can do this. Come on, you can do this, Alex. You did it before, you know how to fight. It's gonna work. They're just dummies at the gym. You can do it. She glanced around the pillar again, noting their position. The closest one by the slime spatter on the floor. 3 by the far side of the hall, next to the mangled corpse, their backs turned away from her. 2 more, farther down the hallway, almost out of sight. And another in the middle, the big one. The one with dark kindness plates and a tangible aura of menace. It seemed to be the one issuing orders. Her breath quickened. They'll kill you if they get the chance. Are you going to let them hunt you? Best to attack when they're distracted. Best to get the jump on them right now. You can do it, Alex. Come on. If they're just as squishy as the others, they'll drop fast. Coming up with this plan had been easy. Gathering the guts to carry it out, not so much. She felt ridiculous at that moment, hunched behind a pillar, goading herself to attack a group of hell-spawn monsters that surely had infinite numbers with which to hunt her. Maybe this was all part of her punishment, to struggle, to fight for survival, to build up her hopes just so they could be crushed later on. Any information she obtained would be specifically designed to get her nowhere. Once more she forced herself to rein in self-doubt. Even if there truly was no hope, it made no difference. Everything came down to a simple choice: to remain idle or to take action. It was an easy choice. Nothing to lose, Alex. Nothing to lose. She kept her attention on the scene in front of her. The trio by the corpse went separate ways from the rest, a bit farther away. The lone creature by the pool of slime edged closer, seeming only interested in what lay in front of it, while the rest had gone out of her immediate sight and would not see her coming. It was time. She took a few more quick breaths through gritted teeth. Go now! Now, damn you, now! Her toes scratched in the gravel to gain a firm footing, her every muscle tensed, her hands clenched against the pillar. With her insides tied up in knots, Alexandra sprang out of cover and dashed forward. The thumping of her feet against the ground didn't go unnoticed. By the 3rd stride, the thing that was closest had turned to face her. The 4th stride had it backing away slightly, its appendages spreading what she could only interpret as shock. The 5th stride became a jump that contained every ounce of strength she could muster. She extended her leg at the apex, let out a howl that she couldn't have contained even if she had tried, and aimed her foot at the midsection of the wretched monster. All her anger and frustration was focused on that foot. Her kick connected, and it was as if the creature wasn't even there. She plowed through it in an explosion of slime that surely would have blinded her had she not looked away and shielded her eyes at the right moment. She landed at such speed that she skidded through the soil gravel on foot and knee a full 2 yards before regaining control of her movement, her features twisted in a pained snarl. The grind against the sharp shards only added fuel to the fire. She propelled herself at a full run towards the pair of creatures to her left, leaving the other 4 farther behind. Every one of them looked stunned by her sudden appearance. Alexandra closed the distance to the two monsters before they were done turning. They screamed incoherently on her and... Were they trying to run away? The thought fleeted at the brink of awareness and was quickly banished. There were only the demons and the sequence of movements necessary to survive them. Nothing else could matter. Fear rippled through her as she lunged between them without slowing down. She crouched under and past flailing claws and threw her entire body behind a wide swing of her right arm. The limb sliced messily through the creature's midsection. Alexandra's cry was half howl and half scream as she felt the alien flesh rip and tear against her skin. She wanted to recoil in disgust, curl into a ball and throw up. She wanted to escape from their voices, run away and keep running until she could no longer hear their agonizing wails. She forced herself to dig hands and feet on the gravel, skidding as she spun around to face the other one. It had no face to decipher, no body language that she could understand, but in the split second that it took for her to throw herself at it, somehow she knew that the thing was terrified. Her hand seized one of the gnarly arms clawing at her, and she pulled. She had only wanted to add momentum to the knee thrust that should have caved the thing's torso, but she fumbled as her hand crushed the appendage as if it was made of wet clay. Half the arm was severed from the beast with a gut-wrenching sound. The other half of it twisted into an oozing stump. Her balance upset, she plunged without control, shoulder first into the bellowing beast. While the impact didn't carry enough force to maim the thing outright, it was enough to send it sprawling backwards and away at a disproportionate speed. It hit one of the pillars nearby with a wet crunch and collapsed, silent and motionless. Alexandra didn't understand why her blow seemed to carry such incredible strength, but she was not about to start questioning it. There were 4 more to go. She turned around to face the rest, expecting them to have spread around to surround her. She was surprised to find the trio of so-called demons cowering behind the large one, hardly 20 feet away. The big one regarded her with a mix of indignation, apprehension, and hatred. Mostly hatred. Attack while they're weak. She held back against the impulse. She could feel its hatred at a physical level somehow, like waves emanating from it. The thing wanted her bound and tortured, and it looked capable of doing just that all by itself. She bared her teeth in what she hoped was an intimidating snarl. Her fists, sickly juices dripping from them onto the ground, were clenched so hard that they were shaking. You will tell me what I want to know, demon, or I will slaughter every last one of you. Laughable empty threats, the voice of self-doubt came. How many before you tried to fight as well? The cowering creatures whimpered pitifully and crowded even closer together. The hatred coming from the big one intensified. Was it protective of the smaller ones? Should Hellspawn care about one another? She had only a second to ready herself before the thing let out a blood-curdling screech and sprung toward her like a coiled viper. Alexandra threw herself out of the way, barely avoiding snapping claws and lashing tail. She strove to ignore the rough landing on the gravel and the new scrapes that came with it, rolling awkwardly on her side and springing to her feet as quickly as she could. The beast skidded forward as it tried to change direction, its wits buried beneath an avalanche of rage. Without any time to lose, Alexandra ran and leaped after it, left hand frantically grabbing at its flaming tail, the other made into a fist and raised over her head. Her teeth were bared with enough ferocity to match the demon's. She punched the monster's back with every ounce of her strength, hoping her newfound superpowers would make short work of it. The chitinous plate looked so solid, though. Too solid. She knew it the instant before her hand made contact. Too solid. It was like punching a slab of granite. Alexandra grunted in shock through gritted teeth, feeling knuckles give way and bones break past her wrist. Her vision blurred as the tide of pain crashed through her arm and flooded her senses. Her legs went limp and she fell against the writhing creature, the thrust from her jump carrying over onto the landing and sending both bodies stumbling forward. Out of instinct, she twisted to shield her injured arm before she came down hard against the ground, her shoulder bearing most of the impact as shards of gravel flew everywhere around them. The demon kept its balance easily on its forelegs. It turned and closed the short distance between them in a heartbeat. What had been pain moans through a clenched jaw turned into an agonized scream as the demon's tail wrapped around her broken limb and jerked her upright. The chitinous monster dangled her in midair for an interminable moment, her screams becoming wailing sobs as shattering bones crushed together, ripping and grinding against their flesh. It pulled her even closer and let out another screech that she couldn't understand. Alexandra was barely aware of anything other than the unbearable throb spreading through her entire body. Can a soul have broken bones? The thought came out of nowhere and vanished as quickly as it had come. She couldn't move, she couldn't think, she could only feel pain so intense that it clawed at her sanity. It was the pincer that suddenly stabbed her just above the knee that sent her over the edge. She had to make it stop. There was nothing else. Her free hand darted around another claw and clamped around one of the demon's other arms, a thick, awry thing ending in a razor-sharp talon. Alexandra pulled with strength born of desperation, pulled with the grim knowledge that her leverage rested on a mangled limb and an impaled thigh. Like a demented mantra, only one thought repeated in her head above the pain. Nothing to lose. The extremity twisted off the beast's body like a sapling being uprooted from the earth. The demon's shrieks became almost loud enough to match her own. Her leg was fire, her hand was a blinding ball of torment still clutched by the thing's tail, but she forced herself to keep pulling and twisting until the limb yanked free. Dark yellow fluids immediately sprayed and oozed from the ghastly wound. She refused to relent even as the enraged creature shook her violently. She tossed aside the useless hunk of flesh and reached for the closest thing she could grab, determined to cause as much damage as she could. The beast whipped around in a frenzy, its tail flexing and extending, tossing her about in a wild fit that dislodged whatever was stabbing her thigh. She had thought it impossible for the pain to get any worse, but she had been terribly mistaken. Blinded by the unbearable jolts traveling up her maimed limbs, she grabbed aimlessly with her free hand at anything that she could rip apart from this hideous thing that wouldn't let go of her wrist. Something landed on her extended palm, and her fingers clamped on it like talons on prey. She twisted. She pulled. This time the demon's screech far surpassed Alexandra's pain sobs. It released her in mid-motion, sending her sprawling across the ground. Her awful trip came to an abrupt halt when she thumped against the column. Even as she struggled to get air in her lungs, the agony in the beast's high-pitched wails gave her a modicum of satisfaction. Her muscles refused to obey. She was unable to do anything but lie still, all her efforts concentrated on breathing in and out. It felt like hours, but it couldn't have been more than a few seconds. She strained to sit upright, moans escaping through bloodied lips and gritted teeth. She had bitten her tongue at some point. A look at her good hand confirmed her suspicion. She'd torn off a handful of those thick antennae that sprouted at the top of the monster. Judging by the ongoing screeches, these demons were quite attached to their antennae. Not this one anymore, she thought with a mirthless chuckle that turned into a groan. She tossed aside the disgusting things, and in doing so she caught sight of her injured leg. It was a clean puncture wound on her quad, right above the knee and on the outer side of her thigh. Blood already soaked her battered purple sweatpants, making the fabric cling uncomfortably to her skin. Hopefully she'd be able to limp her way through this. She didn't want to find out how her hand looked. She might truly empty her stomach at the sight of it, if it looked half as bad as it felt. You're not done yet. Finish what you started. Alexandra couldn't help crying out as she pushed herself upright against the pillar. She cast a quick glance around and was relieved to see that the remaining lesser demons were nowhere to be seen. Whether they'd fled in terror or gone to seek help, she wouldn't have to deal with them for now. The chitinous beast writhed on the ground, its agony subsiding into gurgled whimpers as it thrashed about. Slowly she limped toward it, jaw aching from how long she had clenched it. Shallow breaths that came in spurts were all that she could manage as she put one foot in front of the other, awkwardly trying to keep all the weight on her good leg. By the time she got to the creature, it twitched feebly on its side, uttering faint noises that Alexandra took as pain moans. That viscous liquid that was the demon's blood continued to pour from its wounded stumps. Don't you die on me now, you son of a bitch. There's no way I can do this again. The beast recoiled when she bent over and stretched her arm toward it, but went deathly still when her hand wrapped around and tugged at the remainder of the antennae. You will answer my questions, she rasped. It was all that she could manage. Alexandra could feel the creature's anger returning. When it spoke, the screeching sound somehow translated into words she could understand, albeit crudely.
You no get anything, biped. I don't give you anything.
Alexandra's scowl deepened. Where are other humans kept? How can I reach them? There was only a strangled trill for a response. The thing was laughing at her. She gave the antennae a sharp tug that stopped the laughter dead. You will answer, she said, and a different approach occurred to her then. Or I will hunt down the ones that fled and give them pain that will make your fate seem merciful. A part of her was startled at the words coming out of her mouth. It wasn't just a threat, she knew. She would do it if that's what it took to loosen the monster's tongue and get the information she sought. It wasn't something a nice person would do. You have nothing to lose, Alex. You are already damned.
Can't trust biped,
the thing said.
You go after. You kill anyway.
Her last shreds of patience vanished. She yanked again, hard enough for something to start ripping. She yelled over the demon's agonized cries. You are in no position to bargain, you worthless shit. I'll go get them right now. The thing talked as soon as it could stop screaming. All defiance had evaporated.
Not hurt them. Not hurt them, I beg. I answer all. I not know all, but I answer all.
What kind of demon was this? It didn't even seem very bright. The anguish in its alien voice was enough to make her determination falter. It would kill you if it could. It tried to do just that. You can't afford guilt. You can't afford mercy. She made a conscious effort to harden her resolve. I have to find someone. His name is Aaron Gretchen. Do you know where he is? The monster took a moment to respond.
I not know names,
it said. Its stump twitched and oozed. Alexandra scowled and tried to organize her thoughts. The daunting scope of her task became clear as she searched for the right questions to ask. I need to learn the lay of the land. Even the pit of damnation needs to have some sort of structure. Might as well get the obvious question out of the way. Where are non-believers kept, and how could I reach them? The creature appeared uncertain.
You look for more bipeds, like you?
Not just anybody. Her grip had begun to shake. Bending over the demon was torture, but she did not dare release it to get more comfortable.
This not good realm for you,
the demon said.
You only one here. Go other realms. Find other bipeds. I tell you way out.
So she'd gotten her very own realm. Was that the way it went? A small pocket of warped reality for every soul? What is this realm supposed to be? Why did I come here?
This realm, carved barrow.
It paused.
You, newborn. Newborn, very weak, very dumb. Sever on sight. Not supposed to fight back.
The alien's comment was deeply reproachful. Why? What did I do to deserve that? Why did you attack me?
All bipeds evil. You newborn biped, easy to sever, easy to be rid of evil. You kill clan, you hunt clan, clan fight back. No bipeds wanted in carved.
She cut the rant short with another sharp pull that sent the demon writhing and screaming in pain. What the hell are you talking about? You're a goddamn demon! Do you think you can feed me bullshit like this? I swear I'll make you regret.
No hurt! No hurt!
The creature responded in shrieks, trampling over her words. Alexandra realized that she had kept pulling without meaning to.
I say truth. Clan keep stories. Clan say newborn, all crazy like you. This realm, one of many. Clan live in carved barrow. Clan proud of carved barrow. Clan not let bipeds take over. Many deaths, much blood. Bipeds say not worth fighting clan. Many bipeds in other realms. You go Nexus. You go other realms. You leave Carvaro. This all I know. I beg.
Frustration swelled even further. None of it made sense. She'd risked her neck to interrogate this wretch monster, and it made no damn sense. Was there even a point to it? Wasn't all this a simple illusion of freedom? Would she turn out to be a rat in a labyrinth, trapped to relive the same futile quest for eternity in her tiny little pocket of reality? You're wasting time retreading pointless questions. It comes down to the same choice as before. You fight, or you give up. Her captive took her thoughtful silence as an invitation to continue.
Nexus gate out that way.
It made a vague gesture with one of its remaining arms in the direction she'd been running earlier.
Go mound bound outside. Turn temple bound upon crossing chasm. Gate 5 chasms temple bound. Cross gate, Nexus 7 chasms mound bound.
Alexandra barked out a laugh that became a grimace. Somehow the distances had seamlessly translated into miles in her head. 50-something miles, she said, hoarse and out of breath. I'll fall over before I walk 50 feet. She was ready to fall over right there and then. The stab wound was becoming too much to bear in her current position. Her crushed hand got worse with every passing second. What will you do once this interrogation is over? Will you leave this thing here so it can recover and chase you down? Will you kill it in cold blood? She put the disturbing thought out of her mind. You keep calling me a newborn. Why?
Stories say biped appear in realms, anywhere. Not common in Carvaro, but happens. Always crazy, always wild, like hatchlings, like you, always afraid of clan.
You attacked me first.
You always kill clan. No friends, never friends. You always kill.
What the hell are you talking about? She pulled again, but it only fed the monster's anger.
Clan hunt newborn, sever newborn. Clan hate all bipeds. Clan hate you, hate you.
It lunged at her, claws and talons all outstretched to rip her apart. Alexandra didn't have time to think. She yanked as hard as she could while scrambling to get away. She stumbled when her injured leg failed to bear her weight. She fell awkwardly on her backside, and the landing sent yet another jolt of pain through her limbs. She struggled to keep still, hoping for the worst to pass. The beast's high-pitched howls reached to new heights as it contorted and twisted where it lay, thrashing mindlessly, extremities flailing wildly. The whole handful of antennae was still in Alexandra's hand, yellowish blood oozing all over her skin. She tossed them aside with a disgusted shudder. The screams died out abruptly before she had time to even shake off the dizziness. She looked up to see the demon lying almost motionless, twitching in its death throes. She would have put more distance between the dying monster and herself, but she couldn't fathom the thought of moving even an inch. Alexandra sat there, staring at the thing. A part of her couldn't help feeling sorry for the beast, despite it all. She stuffed that part of her into a chest, locked the lid, and threw the chest down a bottomless pit. She'd asked herself whether she could have killed it in cold blood. It was a great relief to leave that question unanswered. 50 miles. I need to walk over 15 miles to get out of here, if this thing can be trusted at all. She labored to repeat the directions in her head, just in case she decided to follow them. The terrible pain from her injuries made it nearly impossible to concentrate. Its sharp edges had dulled slightly, but were still far from manageable. The throbbing was unrelenting, while her whole arm felt numb and limp at her side. She still dreaded taking a good look at it. Lord, how am I going to get any of it fixed? Alexandra pushed the worry out of her mind with some effort. Maybe if she ignored the problem, it would solve itself. That's as good a plan as she could come up with at the moment. A pool of blood had already formed on the ground under her knee. No wonder she was feeling dizzy. Suddenly, the slight dullness overtaking the worst of the pain took on a new meaning. Between the puncture wound and the cuts and bruises from all the nosedives through gravel, how much blood had she lost already? Does a soul bleed? She dismissed the thought out of hand. It obviously did. She only needed to look at pretty much any part of her anatomy for proof. She strained to bend over and examine the wound closer, peering past the torn fabric clinging to her skin. It looked awful. Deep enough to have done some serious damage to muscle tissue, wide enough to need a lot of stitches that she had no way to procure, even if she managed to get it clean somehow. She was afraid to even apply pressure on it for fear of getting more filth in there. As she carefully touched the area around it, she noted with bitter disappointment that her engagement ring was as soiled as the rest of her hand. She put the silly concern out of her mind. Maybe the back of her shirt would be clean enough to use, but taking off her shirt meant taking it around the misshapen mess that was her arm. Not a pleasant prospect. Still, if she didn't do something about it, it was going to get furiously infected. Does a soul die of a fever? Does a soul bleed to death? The question stayed with her this time. Her injuries didn't make much sense. What would happen if she simply kept bleeding? Could she die twice? Die in the afterlife? That's ridiculous. All this is ridiculous. A soul was immortal by definition. How had she been maimed to begin with? She didn't even have a body anymore. How did a spirit get broken bones? How did a spirit feel dizzy from blood loss? It was simply absurd. It didn't make sense. It went against everything she'd ever... The dizziness flared up in a flash, becoming a harrowing migraine that pounded across her whole brain. It occurred to her that her brain should be far beyond feeling pain, which in turn made the merciless stabs inside her skull even worse. She gasped for breath, eyes bulging, and for a brief moment she saw her skin flicker. Its contours became fuzzy, indefinite. Thick mist floated around her. She squeezed her eyes shut, bringing up her good hand to cradle her forehead. It felt like her head was about to split open, swelling throbs pushing against her skull from the inside. Soon she couldn't think of where she was or what she'd been doing as the bloating pain overtook every other concern. Her one and only desire became to make the pain stop. She focused on drawing deep breaths. No questions, no puzzles. Just breathing. Breathing. She had lungs that needed air. She had blood that needed oxygen to carry to her muscles and organs. She had a heart to pump that blood through arteries and veins. Nothing hurt. Nothing was wrong. Everything made perfect sense. She focused on her heartbeat, not letting any concerns come between her and that steady thumping as it slowly regained its normal rhythm. The tides of pain that had drowned her receded bit by bit, becoming a dull ache after long, long minutes. She waited until it was completely gone before opening her eyes. The first thing she noticed were the tattered rags that had replaced her clothes. A threadbare, long-sleeved cotton shirt, dyed in what might have been bright pink ones, full of rips and torn in several places. A long denim skirt with a slit up one side and a highly irregular hem, covered in so much dirt that there was more brown than blue to it. What in Tartarus? She hadn't worn this outfit in over 2 decades. Alexandra touched the coarse fabric of the skirt with her fingertips, pinching and rubbing with her thumb. Shortly after, her eyes widened at the fact that she was using her right hand to do it. As she effortlessly flexed perfectly healthy fingers, it finally registered that not just the headache had vanished. All the pain was gone, from the 100 scrapes and cuts to the soreness in her feet. She hurriedly lifted the side of her skirt to find only smooth, dark skin where a gaping hole used to be. No blood remained, not even the blood that had pooled beneath her, not even the blood that didn't belong to her. Every inch of her was free of the filth that had covered her just a moment ago, her beloved ring included. And her feet. She bent a knee and grabbed her foot. She ran her fingers along the sole, traced the arches, and poked at the toes. My, but it was one rough foot full of calluses and tough scar tissue. The kind of foot that could walk on glass shards as if they were cotton balls. The kind of foot she used to have, and had wished for, in a moment of weakness. What the hell just happened? Panic crept in, stirring the deeper dread that had never really left. For a brief time, just a minute ago, she would have done anything to make the pain go away. And then it was gone. Had she made a bargain without even knowing it? Had it all been an elaborate ruse for her to surrender her soul in exchange of relief? She looked in all directions, expecting a triumphant laugh, gloating at her demise. She began to feel silly after a minute of uneventful waiting. Other explanations began to emerge. Maybe she was trapped in a nightmarish illusion where everything happened by design, without apparent reason. Maybe she had been shown a small mercy by whoever was watching. Most likely, she'd done something that she did not understand at a time when her thoughts were wildly flailing about. It was not the first inexplicable thing that had happened, after all. Don't ask too many questions. That's what brought on the headache in the first place. Also, maybe you should get out of here before the others come back with help. Alexandra chafed at the part of her that wouldn't let her just sit still for a while. She made an effort to tack miraculous healing on her growing list of unexplained mysteries, along with her ability to punch holes through aliens as if they were mounds of lard and pluck arms off bodies like picking petals off flowers. She pushed away bleak suspicions, stomped down on both dread and self-pity, and inhaled deeply. She got to her feet on the exhale, and it was delightfully painless. She looked at the motionless beast one last time, a frown pursing the corner of her mouth. Save for a moment I believed its story. If these guys aren't here to torment me, what is really going on? Hardly anything had said or done was consistent with a demon's expected behavior. It had mostly wanted her gone, in fact. Considering what it had said about newborns and bipeds, Alexandra almost got the impression that her presence was no more than random chance. The possibility was even worse than her fate being an isolated mistake. Random judgment regardless of her deeds in life? She could barely suppress a shiver. Stop standing still, she admonished herself. You're in danger no matter what these things are. Stay alert and see if you can avoid your special brand of diplomacy from now on. Alexandra averted her eyes from the hapless mess surrounding her and started the long walk that would supposedly take her out of the realm. Her feet felt the gravel under her steps no more than a rock feels the downpour in a rainstorm.